Ready for action. Chinwag.
Ready for action.
Chinwag. Loaded for bear. Is that a phrase? Loaded for bear.
Yeah, I think so.
That means you got like heavy ammunition in your weapon, I would think.
Always
Loaded for bear, which is significant in terms of the person we're going to talk to, actually, I'm thinking. Today, at today's Chinwag.
Very nice.
But that's an interesting phrase, loaded for bear, all those kinds of funny phrases.
Locked and loaded. Yeah, a lot of war metaphors.
It's true.
In our language.
Yeah.
Are we doing the intro now?
Yes. As far as I'm concerned, this is the intro. This is the intro, Steve. It's always going, baby. This is it.
People just dial it in, but Paul and I are always here anyway.
Always going. Can I tell you, that was a thing that was actually a real revelation to me about the kind of like cyber world we live in. I remember getting into a taxi at a certain point. This is a while ago. This is 20, 25 years ago. They put these screens in taxis. They put television into taxis. And it was sort of like
irritating.
New York taxi TV. But I remembered realizing one day I would get into the cab and it would be on, and a lot of the time, and I'd turn it off. A lot of times the drivers would go, "Thank you."
Yeah, that's what I
had to listen to this all day. And it was the day I had the revelation of, this is so interesting. The choice I'm having here is not to turn it on, it's to turn it off.
Yes,
and I thought,
exactly.
Oh, this is the world we live in. Everything's on all the time.
Yep.
And actually the option I have is to turn it off. What happened to my option to turn it on? You know what I mean?
That's a good point.
It was really interesting.
Is that the result of marketing? I mean,
but isn't it just the wired world we live in now, that everything's on all the time?
A psychologist studied this and wrote a book. The book was called Nudge. And he was basically saying people do not respond well if you ask them to turn something on. They respond better. The default should be to turn it off because they'll respond to that.
So you have the choice to be like, oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So there was a conscious choice to go, we're going to have this on, but you get to turn it off if you want
Something like that, yeah. I think some psychology is in there somewhere. I don't think it made
me feel any better. It's like, it didn't make me feel any better. I was like, I don't want this thing on all the time, you know? Because I can remember around the same time realizing my son and his friends, having to explain to them people's like a TV station signing off for the night.
Oh, they've never seen anybody sign off. Yeah,
no.
That's
and they were like, so what would happen? You'd hit the thing, and I would say, yeah, and then they'd play the national anthem,
and then
they would say shit like, "We're ending our, Channel 5 WNEW thanks you for another great programming day," or whatever the fuck it was.
That's true.
And then it would sign off, and then it would go like a bunch of snow or and it was a test pattern or something like that.
That black and white test pattern with all those like circles and
whatever
crazy.
It was.
That was some Illuminati shit.
Things would things would shut up, and I would remember
things would stop.
Realizing they didn't know what a dial tone was on a phone that indicated that the line was no longer functioning.
God, that's crazy.
And again, it's so weird to me. You get on the phone, there's never that sense. It's always still on in some way.
Yeah. That it's a live line.
Yeah, it's dead now. It's not functioning anymore. I don't know. It's just weird to me. On.
Yeah, like I think that like the millennials sort of were the first to really grow up with all this always on. And now the Gen Z are consciously making choices about actively turning off at some point.
It's true. I noticed that with my kid. And it was good in a way. There seems to be more a sense of like, I have the choice to plug into this or not. And there seems to be a kind of revival to me in a nice way of the concept of privacy. Because for a while it was like privacy was equated with secrecy. If you were being private, you were hiding something.
Oh.
You know what I mean? It's like...
Now you're just sort of protecting aspects of yourself and your life that from... basically marketing and AI.
Yeah. Well, the biggest paradigm shift to me was this weird sense of like privacy it was a different thing. The erosion of the sense of privacy. Everybody's supposed to be broadcasting themselves all the time. And then by some correlation, you're supposed to just be talking about yourself all the time. You're supposed to be completely open about everything, right?
Yeah.
In some ways, culturally, but that seems to be changing to me a little bit.
Yeah, my students for a while all felt, they were all very confessional. They were just like dumping all this stuff on the class. And I'm like, whoa, we don't need to know all that.
Well, yeah.
And now I feel like you're right. They're dialing it down a little bit. They seem to understand, like, I can hold some things in reserve.
Some of this is actually a good thing to have a sort of, I was Marcus Aurelius talked about sort of like the inner citadel of like privacy.
Yes.
To sort of like having something that's for you. That's why he was writing those things.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's a question, I guess, how much he really was writing that for himself or writing it for history, that stuff.
The Stoicism philosophy, yeah, like the meditations.
Those particular meditation things, like he must have had some awareness that somebody was going to be interested in these.
I'm sure he did, but I read them every couple of years I read them. They're still quite good. They feel very genuine to me, yeah.
They're amazing. No, they're amazing. But he definitely has a lot of great stuff about the inner self, the thing that's you, that's for you, that's you.
The Stoics were trying to protect themselves from a much more, I mean, it's an interesting question. Who lives in a more volatile, violent time, them or us? You know? And for them, there was a lot of stuff like slavery then. There was, there was this terrible violence, and also like very few people had power or wealth. So how do you survive in that world? You make an inner citadel of the mind, and then nobody can hurt you, basically.
Yeah, and I suppose religion provided a lot of enhancing the inner citadel. I mean, I don't know whether it is a question whether it was more violent then or more violent now. I mean, certainly the ways to kill people are more efficient now than they were then. But the presence of it was in your face then.
Yeah, it was in your face.
Now we can be distant from it to some extent, or we can distance ourselves from it.
There's a cool metaphor difference here too, because like Plato and some philosophers like Aurelius, they said, oh, you make like a diamond of yourself it can scratch things, but it can't be scratched. But then Plato's idea is more like you're really like a plant. And you need to interact with sunlight and water and nutrition. And that's like having a family and making a little money. So you can't be a diamond separated from people. You have to be connected to them like a plant. And that's more realistic, he thought.
That's like an endless debate.
Yeah.
It? Like how much of an individual should you be? How much a part of something else bigger?
Yeah.
Big questions we're hitting already. We're tackling in the Chinwag.
The Chinwag goes through the throat, right to the throat.
Right to the jugular. Heavy shit right off the bat. There's some heavy shit coming up in this conversation too, actually.
Really.
But before that, as always, please rate us, review us.
If you get an episode that you like this one, I think, hit the share button and send it to, you can text it to friends and family.
Yep, send them a link. Keep your comments and questions coming as well. All righty, so today's guest, she does it all. She's a triple threat at the very least. She's an incredibly talented actor, director, writer, and producer. I mean, that's a quadruple threat right there.
Yeah, she is.
Yep, she starred in both The Hunger Games and the Pitch Perfect film series, which I understand you're a fan of, Steve.
I actually am embarrassed to say it's not exactly the kind of thing you would predict me to like, but I quite enjoyed it.
I embrace it. I just am surprised. That's all.
Yeah.
I'm surprised to learn you are. And it's just another facet to you. Talking about a diamond. It's just another facet of the diamond that is you, Steve. Those are great, those movies.
They are.
She directed such movies as Pitch Perfect 2, Charlie's Angels, and Cocaine Bear.
Cocaine Bear.
Cocaine Bear. And we're very happy that she's here with us today. She's super interesting. She goes deep. So please welcome my good friend. I've worked with her twice, Elizabeth Banks. Welcome to the Chinwag.
Hi, y'all.
Oh, Elizabeth Banks, what a treat. Do you do one of these? Do you have a podcast?
I did one for Audible called My Body, My Podcast, still available on Audible.
And so you did it for a period of time, you no longer do it.
I did it during the pandemic.
Right.
And to be honest, I enjoyed working with Audible, but it was very much about, it was pretty specific. It was like in chapters, it was a lot of writing. I didn't want to just do the chat version of it. Hold on.
Not this bullshit. Not this kind of nonsense.
Not this bullshit. What are you saying? Yeah. So I...
Uh-oh, you're moving. This is good.
I'm just closing a door that I realize is wide open. I mean, that's my
Jesus.
bar over there.
Nice. Let's see.
Wild animals in
Someday
there.
you gotta come over to the bar.
Okay. So you did this kind of thing. Interesting. Okay.
I like it. Maybe I'll do it again. I'm really interested in doing it again. You guys have a really interesting sort of sensibility, I think that's what makes it
weird.
Yeah.
That's strange.
How did you two meet? I know you guys have said this before,
Well,
but
by the way, this is Steve. This is my
know.
Nice to meet you,
my
Elizabeth.
colleague Steve.
Big fan of yours.
Yeah. Well, how did we meet, Steve? We were
I was given a lecture on actually the pandemic again.
Yeah.
I was given a lecture, and you were in the audience. And then you wrote to me an email and said, well, that was really interesting.
Yeah, like a Zoom lecture.
Yeah,
I wasn't
it was a Zoom
physically in
lecture.
the audience anywhere. I wasn't leaving my house at that point.
And I thought it was just a random guy who had your name. Honestly, I did not think it was you because I thought, what's the chance of that?
And I said, who in their right mind would pretend to be me? Like, why would you do that?
Oh, yeah.
Why would
You never know.
What are you going to get away with if you pretend to be me? You know what I mean? Nobody cares.
You know, that's how I got online originally was someone this is way back. Somebody created an Elizabeth Banks Twitter account.
Interesting.
Oh, really?
And,
Impersonating you.
Yeah, impersonating me. And my friend David was staying at my house and was following me on Twitter. And it was like, hey, just laying by the pool, enjoying a Saturday or whatever. And David was laying by my pool enjoying a Saturday and was like, who is this?
Wow.
Thanks.
This was a while ago because I remember, people are still probably doing that to you, though. I mean, I'm sure that there's multiple.
Now it's known that it's like fan accounts. Right. You know what I mean? Back then in the beginning, people just literally said for you. No.
Yeah.
And got away with it for a while.
I remember a guy, I was working on a job, this was a long time ago, and I was clueless about anything with clueless. I still am. I'm still basically clueless about everything. But a guy came up to me, it might have even been on the movie we were doing, the Christmas thing. He said his name, he said a name, as if I'd recognize it. He was working on the crew, and I said, uh-huh. He said, it's me. I talk to you on your MySpace page all the time.
Oh, shit.
And I was like, what the fuck are you talking about? Yeah, and I had no, so I got it checked out and they got rid of it. I've had a bunch of weird things like that happen, though, with like people pretending to be me and stuff like that.
What's the motivation that people have to do that?
I think it's a strange sense of like, ooh, I am this person or something. I don't know why the hell you would do it.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think everybody wants to feel seen and admired. You know what I mean? I think it's like a really basic human need.
Yeah, it is.
Right?
It's clearly a huge human need when you look at TikTok and all this stuff. I mean, it's just like to have your little venue is really important,
But it's not you. It's, you know what I mean? That's the weird part about it. It's like, let me put some pictures of somebody else up.
It is weird. And I remember seeing a guy recently, there was a guy who was pretending to be me. And it was hilarious because it was all just like, hey, here's Paul Giamatti. Here's my favorite burrito spots around the city. And I'm like,
no, they're Italian restaurants.
Yeah, I know.
It's
like
not
that
Mexican
too.
food.
There is one guy who does a funny one of me, though, that's called Sad Paul Giamatti, which is where he just posts a thing that's very funny.
That's very funny.
It'll say things like, wore sweatpants to a funeral today. And it'll just say stuff like that. It's very funny. I have to say, it's really hilarious.
They'll put together like photos of me from films I did and I'm like, oh, what a great walk down memory lane. Like I have these photos. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you're a big fan.
It's so weird. It's so weird.
And then there's one that's just obsessed with my ass. It's just photos from behind.
Sure. Oh, we sure it's your ass. Do we know it's your ass?
Oh no, they're pictures of me, like fully.
So we know it's you. We know it's your keister.
Oh,
it's not anybody else's.
It's just like looking at pictures of my bum.
What do you think of the whole like foot fetish things where you can go
By the
on
way,
and do
Wiki Feet, I'm very popular.
Wiki Feet.
Wait, what is Wiki Feet? I'm totally out of it. There's a Wiki Feet?
Oh yeah, I have great feet. I'm like totally fine with it. Here's my feet. Go at it, guys.
But you don't. I mean, there's people who make a good living going and putting their feet on there.
Yes, I have not resorted to that yet.
Really?
But I'm not above anything, guys. I'm an actress in Hollywood. It's not.
Listen,
I don't have any dignity left.
Thanks. You know me. I think actually, believe it or not, I think there's even me. I think even I'm on Wiki Feet. I even think there's somebody.
Are they real shots of your feet?
Degenerate out there who's looking at my feet on Wiki Feet.
I hope so. I really.
Can you imagine?
What makes a sexy foot? Like, is it the elongated toe, the shorter toe?
There must be all kinds of things about that.
I think with all things,
there's a range.
There's a foot for everyone,
There's a range of things. Oh, Banks, this is a pleasure. And where do we find you right now? You at home?
I am. I'm at home in LA.
Nice.
And I'm going to be coming to New York for like a few months. So
very nice. You're going to be shooting a motion picture here? You're
I
going
will
to
be
be
shooting a television. I find it weird to call streaming things television series.
Yeah.
Yes. I had the same thing the other night. I said, well, I shouldn't be saying television anymore.
No, I'm not.
Right?
I'm doing a streaming show, which I'm excited about.
Are you helming it, as they say in Variety? Are you?
I am not helming this particular one, no, but I'm excited to direct again. I do like directing things, and I will do it again, but I'm not in a rush. I haven't, it's been difficult to like get excited about something. You have to love it. So, you gotta love it enough to do it every day for like 2 years, 3 years,
At least.
Yeah.
2 years. Yeah.
You've got to have that passion for it. And so it's, it's really got to be something I feel like I have to tell, and somewhere.
Are people asking you like do another Cocaine Bear because it was a hit?
Yeah,
is it like right away like
Cocaine
do a
Bear
sequel?
2? Is that coming out?
Yeah. People really want sequels to things that they like.
Right.
Over and over.
It's wild to me because I really thought that was a one and done, but
well, it's true.
No, you could get all kinds of animals on coke.
It's
Komodo dragons.
I'm like, I loved telling that. So like, again, that was just one, I had a lot of reasons for why I wanted to make that movie. And
it's a great movie. Really
It
fun.
is a great movie, but I want to hear your top reasons for making the Cocaine Bear picture, just because I'm interested.
My number one reason, to be honest, if I really am think deeply about it, which you don't need to think very deeply about Cocaine Bear,
Well,
was really just that it was unlike anything I felt anybody expected me to do.
Uh-huh.
And
Totally.
I really just
It's true.
I just like breaking people's expectations.
That's
good.
great. That's a really good
really
reason to
like
do it.
fucking with people's
Yes.
expectations.
That's a great reason to do it. Yep. Which is why I'm going to be pole dancing next week at a club. And
No,
yeah,
God,
absolutely.
please, perish
That
the
is a
thought.
great, but that's a great reason to do it. You know what you should make a movie about? You should make a movie about the guy who had a tiger in his apartment in the Bronx. Remember this guy?
Oh my God. I heard of that. You've told me about that.
Yes, we talked about it the other day. That's what you should make a picture about. You should make a big picture about that guy.
But nobody died apparently in that case, right?
No, they just figured out he had a tiger in his apartment.
Although no one died in the Cocaine Bears in the real life case, right?
Only the bear. And so
okay.
part of my reason too for Jing was like, I get this real story and I go down the rabbit hole and I read all about it. And at the end, the bear's dead. And I'm like, well, this has got to be the revenge of this bear because this poor bear did not need to get involved in any of this bullshit. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, totally.
And it really felt like I could tell a story where the bear could win at the end,
Awesome. Yeah.
In case people don't know, basically cocaine drops out of a plane. The bear eats the cocaine and goes on a rampage. Just in case there's 5 people who haven't seen it.
It's a great idea. Are you into do you enjoy like horror movies and stuff like that? So you do.
Yeah.
Have you always liked them?
Yeah, always love them. And it's funny. I brought my 2 young boys came to the premiere of Cocaine Bear. They really almost never come to anything. And they're at the time they were 10 and 12. So wildly inappropriate R-rated horror movie. I was like,
Maybe.
you can come to this
Kind
one.
of perfect,
Yeah.
though.
One for the kids, right, Banks?
yeah.
You made one. This one's for the kids.
Exactly. So I've sat next to my 10-year-old and, I knew everything was coming. So I was like, I'm going to kind of watch him. And, it's very fun to watch the audience watch Cocaine Bear because they just go, it's so surprising and crazy. And so I was watching him and he had the reaction that I had that I think tells you that you're going to be a horror fan, which is whenever it was really terrible, he was laughing.
Yeah.
He was like uncomfortably like, wow.
Yeah.
And we go,
Yeah.
like he's on the roller coaster with it and not like needs to hide under the seat or throw up. I truly believe there are people that like they physically have a reaction to it that is not positive, and it's not for everyone.
No, it's definitely
but
not.
I love it. I'm also like, I think life generally is, like a folly, and I don't have a lot of respect for it in a weird
Very
way.
philosophical. I'm with you.
So I'm kind of like, I don't know, shit happens, good and bad people. I mean, like, why are we trying to make sense of any of this? It's like we're here for a brief moment.
Interesting.
So, yeah, of cooking, but also I just loved I think that's what horror I think is really fun for me. It's like,
So it's a little bit of a like things are a little bit of a kind of cosmic joke in some way.
it's a way I think to process real world trauma that we all know is sitting in the background of
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah.
And have a way to do it in a way that's safe and fun,
There's a group I know in Denmark, and they run what's called the Recreation Fear Lab. So they study horror films. They'll hook you up to electrodes while you watch the movie. They'll have you go through haunted houses. And they find that it doesn't break down like you think along demographics. Like it's kind of equal with men and women, both like horror.
Mm-hmm.
But that some people are so empathic that when they see it, they want to hide, like you said, and others want to amplify, and it makes them laugh. And it's really, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Well, I think the humor element of it is actually a big part of it. The reaction you have is like this semi-hysterical thing where you don't know whether to be scared or laugh. And that is a thing that gets you really off on it. I had the same thing. But then it's like humor in horror is really important. And I mean, we don't have to talk endlessly about Cocaine Bear, but it's like, but the whole premise is hilarious to begin with.
Yeah.
The premise is so ridiculous that it's
I knew that the tone was the whole point of it, right? Like that.
Right.
When you have that big and dumb of an idea, like you really, like you can really go for a lot of things because you have to live up to the title, first of all.
Yes.
And so you might as well be playful with the whole idea of it. But it's also what I mean by like the idea of like people all being murdered and dropping dead in various horrible ways in that movie. Well, that's part of it,
Yes.
That's the revenge of the bear. Like I was saying. Anyway,
as many people can get,
and it has to be fun. Yeah, I think the humor in horror, they go very hand in hand.
They do.
And I prefer my horror with a wink. I'm not as into like Saw and like
sadistic stuff.
Like one of the scariest movies for me was Funny Games. Did you ever see that?
I didn't see that.
It's a Connect Gay movie, and he made it twice. He made it in like, I don't know, his original.
Yes.
And then made it in English with Naomi Watts. And it's so, because it's just about, the thing that makes me the most afraid, which is people with sociopaths with just no sense of right, wrong, and
they invade your home.
Just invade your home. And no matter what you do, you're never going to reason with them, and you're never going to get away.
Right.
And so it's just a slow torture.
And is that movie utterly without humor? Is there no humor?
Yeah, I've seen it now that you mention.
I've never seen either version of it. And so they're both, there's no laughs aplenty in Funny Games. There's no chuckles anywhere.
No.
There's a film like that called like, I want to say Strangers, like Liv Tyler's in it. And these people just come, right? Is it something?
But that one is like, it's not as psychological, right? Like the way that one is like, I've seen Strangers too. And they show up at the house and you're like, okay, it's like, we're going to save our home kind of a thing. I don't know. There's something more like action-y about that movie. You know what I mean? Funny Games is like, it's truly like just people fucking with you.
It's a nightmare.
It's violent. And it's a nightmare. It's like
it's plausible too, is part of what's really,
Totally.
And that's also what's disturbing about that is that it can happen. I mean, and it does happen. And it's like, so it's not as, have you acted in a lot of horror movie things? I mean, what did you
I've been in funny ones. I was in Slither, which I love.
Yes, that's right.
Slither.
Yes.
That actually came up on another episode and we were trying to figure out.
we were like,
talking about it. Elizabeth
That's
Banks
right.
is in that.
Yeah, Slither.
That's funny.
That's right. I haven't really gotten the chance to be in many. I was in one horror movie and I remember I was really excited because I had the one moment where I got like freaked out and something. So I got to do the whole like trying to run away from a thing, which was really fun. I've never gotten to be menacing in a horror movie or something like that. But it was fun to be able to do that kind of horror movie freak out of something terrible is about to happen.
It's so fun. I never wanted to be an actor when I was a kid. It was not something that was really on my radar as a career.
Me neither.
But I did like to, I did play around, I did love to I would go through my house and I would go down, and I go down the hallway, around the corner, you know what I mean? Pretend that I'm, someone's in the house with me.
Totally.
I love sort of like that sort of,
Yeah.
what that reaction would be like,
Well, one theory is, like you said, some of it is like trauma, but also some people think, well, all these horror movies are ways to prepare for real predators. Like,
Yeah.
it's kind of like rehearsal. And somebody said that the audience for true crime is like 75% women.
Yeah.
And the idea is like women have to figure out, is this guy an asshole? Is this guy trustworthy?
I'm the oldest. I have 2 younger sisters. And I remember like one of the like maddest I ever got at my sister was she was telling me she had met this guy at a bar and they were going to go on a second date. And it was like a very positive story that she's telling me about how she met. Oh, this is a real thing. And he's coming to pick me up. And I was like, what? You're told him where you live?
Yeah.
I was like,
oh,
you
please.
don't have him. You don't know this guy. Like, what are you doing?
No.
Like,
No.
Just challenging all of her instincts. Like,
No, it's absolutely, that's absolutely right. Oh, please. I would hear about people in the early days of Tinder doing crazy shit. Having people, it's just like, really?
Strangers
You're letting this guy come over and do.
So mean and
totally.
so trusting.
Did you have a spooky house growing up? Was it a spooky place? Was the house kind of spooky? Because I know you're from New England, which I am too. And it's like New England's a weird, spooky place. Did you have like
very spooky?
It's very spooky. Did you have a weird? My house. The house I grew up in was a little house, but it was creepy, and I still think about it, and it gives me like the willies. It was a creepy old house.
I think because everything is so old too, you just feel like you just know there's history that you can't really fathom in places, right?
Yeah.
My house was built in 1899. And in the when you walk down, also the basements in the Northeast.
The basement
Creepy.
in my house, I still
Horrifying.
have like creepy dreams about the basement in the house I grew up in.
Horrifying house.
Horrifying.
My sister, when I go home to Massachusetts, I'm from Pittsfield, Massachusetts. My sister still lives there. And she still has one of these basements where you go down, the laundry's like in a little room. But like, you can't clean it. The floor's dirt.
Yep.
It's a dirt floor.
Yep. And it's like kind of damp, cold stone walls.
All just like bugs and just, so many spider webs hanging everywhere.
Low ceilings.
And like chilly. And you've entered down. You're like, this is where hell is. The entrance to hell is down here.
Totally.
And the light, it's never enough light. There's
and it's always the kind of, it's the bare bulb on a chain and you're pulling it.
There's always things hanging everywhere that got put there 50 years ago.
Old saws,
old saws.
Yeah.
Well, and by the way, like farming tools from 1912 are just hanging in the back, never to be moved.
I was gonna say shit that I remember in our house there was an old desk in the attic. That one day I had the wherewithal. I was probably like 7 or 8. I was like, what the fuck? What is this? What is in this? And it was all like old, the kind of like the old person glasses, the little ones that clip onto your nose, like the old lady fucking, like pairs of those and stuff. And I was like, what is this doing in here?
Whose are those?
Why is this still in here? Whose is it?
It's like a human hand.
Yeah, well, basically.
And also just all the freaky old toys and the doll houses.
Yeah.
Weird,
old toys are creepy
all
too.
That shit. All that weird shit.
Toys in general are fucking creepy. My sisters had dolls that were all freaky and terrifying and stuff like that.
I know. So I grew up with all that.
Was it a haunted place or no?
I don't feel that my home was haunted. I never sensed that my home was haunted. But I always sensed that like where I was had a lot of his, like, we spent a lot of time in the woods, on like what we would call now, we used to call them, and I know this is no longer appropriate, we would call the Indian rocks, right?
Sure.
So the Native American rocks. So obviously the area, it's all, everywhere is native land, obviously.
Yeah.
But we would go because carved into the rocks, we were told like, this is where, people sat and they had meetings and they would like at the top of this hill overlooking like a lake and like, so we would just imagine like all the high school kids would go there and like have fires in the night. And so there was always just like, everything always was like burned and charred. And, there was always this, you just imagine like bad shit was going down.
Yeah. Yeah.
All the time for generations. You
For
know what I mean?
generations.
Sacrificial rites. Yeah. Yeah.
Beginning with the genocide, of our
Yeah.
thing. And,
Right.
so like, it's not like you're kind of very aware of that when you come from the place where the pilgrims got here,
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And so I think also that history, and then like the Salem witch trials, they just like
Right.
burned the lady.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of out of control. So all of that is sort of built into the history of the place. And I also grew up Catholic, and I think Catholicism has all the craziest notions of like Satan and devils and hell
Yeah.
and heaven and all of it, and the fallen and the blah blah blah. The Christianity and like and the church and all of it. And
Yeah.
so I grew up with just all those notions. And the other thing that affected me when it comes to sort of thinking about a spirit world is that my grandmother passed away just before I was born.
Uh-huh.
And I kind of came into a family in mourning, right? And was like,
Uh-huh.
I was like, the gift or the what, the like the whole cycle of life, right? Because
Yeah.
it was
Sure.
me, like come into form. But it also meant that I never knew my grandmother. And so my mom was always talking about how your grandmother's watching over you. Someone's watching, she's here, she's watching over you, which is my mother having to process the loss of her own mother. And not about, we all know what's going on here.
That makes sense.
But it's what I was told for so long that like she's somehow around.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is a little creepy, a little bit.
And so when things were good or bad, and so I would like talk to her, as one does, as just
To your grandmother.
to my grandmother, And so I think that also just sort of affected my notion of can we speak to the dead? Is it possible? And by the way, I never thought I was talking to a ghost. Does that make sense? I just thought like in the same way that my religion had told me, like, you can talk to God and you can like, hey, hear me, hear my prayers,
They're in another place.
Like I could be like, well, let me talk to my grandma then. I'd rather talk to her than some weird dude up in the, I don't know who that guy is,
Yeah. Yeah.
At least I feel like she's got a stake in what's going on with me personally,
As opposed to God.
As opposed to God, it's like,
He's distracted. He's got other things.
Yeah, really, yeah, he's not around.
She might actually be listening.
So I mean, you from an early age accepted this notion that she was around.
I did. I in my own, you know what? I think in a way it was like I didn't when it was convenient. Like there was also a huge part of my brain that was like, that's not true. You know what I mean? And I remember I had a recurring nightmare actually growing up because my grandmother's grave, we would go visit my grandmother's grave sometime. I actually went back and visited it not that long ago because she's buried in the town I grew up in. And as is my grandfather now next to her. But anyway, so I went to visit them often. And I remember coming home and I would have this recurring nightmare about like what was going on. And I think this is partially because I saw Poltergeist really, which I loved. But in Poltergeist, they built the houses on the gravesite.
Graves.
That's right. Yeah, on a grave. Yeah.
And then they all come up out of the pool.
That's right. I
Great.
forgot about that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was imagining my grandmother's body rotting in the coffin.
God.
Like that was my nightmare.
Yeah.
Because I knew that physically that's where she was, right?
Yep.
And so that also really confused me in a way. And I would have these nightmares and I finally I went to my mom and I remember my mom, this is such we had like a dying plant. Every plant in our home was dying at all times. We had a dying plant.
Jesus.
And she, so she explained to me, she's like, listen, she's not really there. She's been gone a long time. I mean, at this point, she'd probably been gone for less than 10 years, actually. And she took a dying leaf off and she crumpled it up and we crumpled it and made it smaller and smaller into like dirt.
That's good. Good lesson.
And she was like, she's dirt now. Like
That's what this is.
It's okay. She's not there. You don't have to worry. The body's not there. She's not coming out. Like it's not, she's back with the earth now,
Yeah.
And that was like this really beautiful lesson. And it did, I never had that bad dream again. I was like, okay.
Interesting.
I just didn't really understand where she was for a while.
Yeah. Well, that was a smart way to handle that from your mother.
Yeah,
I
your
say
mom
kudos
sounds
to your
very
mother.
insightful.
I have a
Yeah,
good
that was
mom.
really smart.
She's
And listen,
good.
it still can freak me out, like the idea of burial and stuff like that. I can sort of like, I mean, I've gone to my parents' grave and been like, they're right down there. They're
Yeah.
just down there. I mean, that's morbid and weird, but it's strange.
It's
You know,
morbid
and
and
it
weird.
makes me realize why some people are like, no, you're gonna cremate me so that none of this is a question.
I want to figure out there's all these new ways of being wrapped and going back into the
Yeah.
whatever these, because I'm like not a fan of the whole, like, let's just take up giant plots of land for
So
dead
that
bodies
too.
for millennia.
No.
When like we could just be the soil for a tree.
You can,
Yes.
you can be planted in a tree. In fact, William Shatner was telling us that's what
We
he
talked
wants
to Bill
to do.
Shatner about that. You
Well, me and Bill want the same.
can listen.
or rocketed to space. Would you rather go to space? You're not of any
No.
use to anything there, but
You don't want to go into space or the
don't
ocean.
romantic.
Somebody just dump me in the ocean. That's kind of one that I'm okay with.
I
Just
mean,
throw me
I
in the
would
water.
like to be useful. Like if I can be fertilizer, go for it. You know,
Yeah. All right.
I'm fine with it.
Now you said something extraordinary. We were just chatting a few days ago about what we were going to talk about. You had a ghost encounter. That you did have a ghost encounter. And do you mind if I ask
did.
you about that?
Yeah, I did. Well, you know, again, I preface this all by saying, like, I think that I don't walk around particularly afraid of death. I'm kind of like, well, it happens here. I'm here, and then I'm gone, and then I'm gone. Like, I don't know what is there. Who knows? So, and I also, like I said, I'm someone who also is like, life is. The whole point of it is like it's precious and brief. Like and you don't know what's going to happen. So like live every day to the fullest. You know, I really do try to live by that. But it also, I think, makes me a little more open to, because I'm not afraid of it. Like I am very open to like those moments. I find it to be a real privilege and like a real honor to witness or be with someone when they're crossing over, right? Like when they're going to not be here anymore. I think it's so like, I just think it's stunningly beautiful.
Yep. I agree.
And kind of amazing. So I say that to say that like, that's the attitude I've had for a very long time. And when I was young, I felt like I saw just like a lot of dead people, like literally like at the moment, like someone was dying. Like I witnessed 2 suicides.
Really?
Not of people I knew, strangers, total strangers,
Wow.
totally random. And I wasn't the only witness either. Like a public thing. So like I was out on a deck in San Francisco, and you could see from where we were like on the 6th or 7th floor.
Oh my God.
And we were looking down this
God.
avenue, and you could see the top of this building down the avenue. And we were watching. I was sitting at a lunch with some people, and we were watching this person up on the roof just kind of pacing. And we were like,
Wow.
what are you doing up there? And then he walked backwards, and then he just walked off the building.
Oh
Wow.
my God.
Wow.
That's
Walked
horrible.
this guy out, and it was crazy.
Holy cow.
Horrible.
Holy cow.
I also happened to be home. Like I moved away from home when I was 18. I was not living there, but I happened to basically be around when both of my grandparents passed away.
Mm-hmm.
And they both died at home essentially. And so, and they were there. I had happened like, why was I that? I didn't even live there anymore. And suddenly I was home, and then that was the time that they went.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
And then I also saw a guy, we came upon a guy, I say we, but I actually think it was just me. My now husband lived in DC for a minute after college, and I was visiting him, and I got off the subway and I forget to stop. You have to walk across this long bridge to get up to where he lived. I was walking across the bridge. I come to the bridge, and it's basically mostly blocked off by police. And I'm like, what's going on? But they're letting pedestrian traffic go. They're just not letting cars on the bridge. And there's a bunch of police. I got a jumper on the bridge.
Oh.
Uh-huh.
And as I'm just very casual, like, oh, what the heck is going on? The guy jumped. He could have landed in a river. There was a river, a road. It was like the Rock Creek Parkway, I want to say.
Uh-huh.
A river, a road, or the grass next to it.
Yeah.
He landed in the grass. And so he kind of made this like crazy impression.
Like a crater. Yeah.
Oh my Lord. That would be like I'd have to get counseling like for a while after this. I mean, that's traumatic.
Did you find
This is what I mean. I don't really think of it as that traumatic.
You're just like shaking it off. Like, oh, no problem.
Oh, well,
It's
there's
not, but
another
like,
guy
wow,
hopped
what an
over.
interesting moment to be.
It
in
is
the
an
world.
interesting thing. It's an extraordinary thing.
And then I was in Macy's in New York City.
Jesus.
Walked in that 34th Street. You know how they have I love
Yeah.
all old escalators. I went to the middle escalator and I walked past this older woman at one of the makeup counters, and the EMTs were coming towards her. She was like freaking out. They'd clearly called the EMTs to help this woman.
Yeah.
Who, literally like the perfume later was like having her sit down, this old lady. And I remember going up a little while later, going up the escalator, the EMTs are CPRing this lady in the middle of Macy's.
Wow.
And one of them's looking to them and going, no, it's out. She's doing this.
Oh, wow. God.
She's not, but they don't want to.
Anytime you show up, it's over.
They don't want to tell all
No,
those.
you don't see.
Macy's.
See, I would say to myself, why am I the guy that's seeing this all the
Yeah.
time? What have I done that's
Maybe you're bringing the bad luck.
that I'm seeing this all the time?
I do question it. I mean, look, by the way, these are all like, that lady was older and this was not
Yes, understood.
tragic, I don't think,
Yeah.
But I saw a tragic one in college. I went to school in Philadelphia and I was walking down like 16th and above Rittenhouse Square. And all of a sudden, I wasn't really paying attention. I was like, I don't know where I was going, shopping or something. And I wasn't really paying attention. And all of a sudden it got really quiet. Like everything, when you're in the city, it's loud.
Yeah.
So to have it seem quiet all of a sudden, that's the first thing I noticed was it was really quiet. And I look
Interesting.
around and I realized there's no cars coming up. All of a sudden there was no traffic anywhere. And I look up ahead and there was like a police car, just one, no lights on. It was the middle of the day.
Yeah.
And I see there's like a guy laying in the street.
Yeah.
And the police went over and one of them took like a hanky, like a little square white hanky.
Uh-huh.
And I'm just walking towards this with no idea really what's going on. And they put the hanky over the guy's face.
Oh, wow.
And that's when I saw it like sucked to his face, almost like he was being mummified, like the outline of his face
Weird.
suddenly there.
Yeah.
In blood. So it was like
God.
blood staining the
wow.
white handkerchief that sucked to his face. And then somebody was like waving me like, go around, don't come closer. And what was crazy was behind me were these 3 kids on skateboards, like, right? So there's no noise. And then I see this visual. I make sense of what's happening. I look over my shoulder, they pass me. And then they just skate right through and right by the body.
Wow. Oh my
Going.
God.
Like it's like no big deal.
Nothing. Yeah.
Cinematic somehow.
I remember thinking that it was like Stand By Me. Remember in Stand By Me how like they're going to see the dead body in the woods. When they get to the body, it's very reverential, right? It's like, and I just thought, oh my gosh, these 3 kids, like we just live in a world where like they just
It doesn't matter.
No, I don't know. Maybe they were like being told by the cops to go or whatever, you know what I mean? Like they didn't also realize what the hell they were, because it was not clear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There had been
Possibly,
a in the middle of the street. They were, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's very much like we came on it like boom, it had just happened.
Yeah.
And so that all the like little things like that freaked me out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I see why you have an existential point of view, like that life is absurd and you don't know how long you're going to have. I mean, that would result.
You're predisposed to it or something.
I also studied like Latin and the Greeks and the Romans, and they loved omens, right? Like the birds and the guts and the sacrifice.
That's where I would go. I would go, why am I seeing this? This must be an omen of something. This must be some sign of something. This can't be good that I'm seeing this.
I have not thought hard about any of those, moments in life as omens particularly. They all felt weirdly, I wouldn't say positive is not the right word, but they all felt calm to me. There was like peacefulness about them.
Yeah.
The omen that freaked me out was we lived my husband and I in our first house. Our first house was like right on the street. Like basically it was like the front door was like the sidewalk and then the street. You could park your car 5 feet in front of the house.
Mhm.
And I opened the door one morning and there was, I kid you not, a perfect white owl.
Oh,
Full grown, huge, big,
wow.
2.5 feet.
Cool.
Beautiful white owl on the doorstep. No sign of like anything had happened to it. Dead on my doorstep.
Oh, dead.
A
Wow.
beautiful white
That's
owl
crazy.
in the morning.
That's where, wait a
Dead
minute, where
on my
was this?
doorstep.
Where was this?
That felt like a weird omen.
That
No,
sounds like an
totally.
omen.
That-
That is an
That's
omen.
definitely freaking. Wait a minute. Where was this?
In the Hollywood Hills.
In
the
a Hollywood.
Like a
Oh.
beautiful white, like I see owls, they're all brown.
Yeah.
I have not seen a white owl
Yeah.
like in the wild here in LA. You see a lot of wildlife here. I've never seen it other than this one that was dead on my door. Like perfect.
No, that
And
feels
lay there
ominous.
and just had expired. It looked like it literally fell out of a tree, landed right in front of my front door.
What does it mean? Like, what do owls mean in the Greek and in the Roman tradition? Like,
I'm gonna be totally honest with you. I didn't want to know. I was like, I
Okay.
want to know what this means.
I'll look
There's
it up
got to
here
be a
and tell you.
particular thing, but I bet they're like messengers from the underworld and stuff like that. I would like crows or that.
It was the owl out of Harry Potter. Like, you know, the Harry Potter owl was
Yeah.
like
Sure.
owl, like just laying in front of my house. And, you know, we called, like, I remember we called like animal services. We're like, you know, I didn't want to, I was like, we're not going to touch it. We're not,
No.
you know,
Yeah.
let's get someone. I don't want to, it was so beautiful. It was just it was very like calm, but also.
Seems meaningful.
It's very, but no, that feels like it has to have some meaning. Jesus, Banks, when you said to me you saw dead people, I was like, I thought you you were like the Sixth Sense kid. I'm like, oh, you saw dead people.
Well, you saw a lot of cadavers.
Yeah.
You've seen a lot of people dead.
But I also like, again, people go to war. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Who the fuck? These are not.
Yeah.
This is my point about like,
Yeah.
I really do try to put these kinds of things in perspective. Like, I think it's weird that I've seen this many dead people, but I also am
Yeah.
like, I don't know, I have a pretty varied life. I do get around.
Yeah.
So maybe it's just, weird timing, weird place. Like,
And people would have seen cadavers and dead people all the time. Any time before the 20th
All
century,
the
it would have been
time.
like, oh, there's
All the
another
time.
dead body. Yeah.
No, all the time.
we have plagues,
Yeah.
I also don't take it to mean anything sometimes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think it's weird, but I'm also like, I don't know, maybe nothing.
Just random.
But so my ghost story,
Yes.
and again, I want to preface this by saying,
Paul's waiting for the ghost story.
well, my approach to this is, there are obviously many things about the world around us that we cannot explain
Mhm.
and that we don't totally know. We don't know about the depths of the ocean, and we live on this planet, like, right? We're still figuring out mysteries of the universe. So I will just say, for me, in my perspective on this story I was like, this is just some learning for me. I don't know what's going on here, but I'm learning something.
Yeah.
What I learned was that I could not lay in a bed that I wanted to lay in because it was occupied. Okay.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So Paul and I, this is a story. Why I said I would tell the story is because it happened on Paul and I made 2 movies, just 2.
Well, what were the movies, real quick?
Amazingly, it's only been 2, Banks. Amazingly, it's only been 2. Yeah.
I basically want to make every movie with Paul.
I'm good with that.
So we made 2 films together, and the first time was this film called Fred Claus, which we shot in London, and we
An
shot.
immortal Christmas classic, I want to add. Just an immortal Christmas
It's
classic.
the only Christmas movie that didn't work.
I'm sure it was not the only one.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it did work.
So anyway, by the way, that movie is filled with like 5 or 6 Oscar winners, and everyone's an Oscar nominee except for me. In that cast.
Is that true? Oh, come on. That's not true. That's not so.
That's
is
what
it?
the owl was about.
Oh,
You
I
saw
guess
the
you're right.
owl,
Now that
and
I
this
think
is what
about it, you're
means.
right.
Go through the list.
Now I
You're a
think about it, you're right.
pretty cool person.
Listen, it's not a feather in anybody's cap, and so Listen, wonderful experience though. Wonderful. It is a whole other podcast.
So we were shooting at Pinewood Studios, which is like a very old studio outside London. They've shot all the James Bonds there.
Right.
Oh, great.
From the beginning of celluloid, they've been using.
Pretty much. Yeah. It's one of these places that goes way back.
And I think it was built on some old, I want to say.
On a burial ground.
It has a history. Like it was like airplane hangars from the wars or something, you
Oh,
know?
really? Yeah.
Pretty
Well,
sure.
London's a place like you're not going to avoid ghosts wherever you're going to build something. It's like they're everywhere in London.
If you go to London, it's like, for me, in terms of ghosts, London and like New Orleans. Like you don't go
Oh, yeah.
to New
Totally.
Orleans, walk around for rent signs. It says like to let, haunted. Or it'll say let.
Yeah.
Price goes up.
Like literally it's like selling point, not haunted. Anyway, so Pinewood is a place that I think if you asked around, many people would say is haunted. Like that, there's a sense that it's haunted there. And Paul knows what I'm talking about. It's old.
And it's weird. You feel also the history of all the movies that have been made there too. And it's like, it's weird. It's old school. They're like weird little dressing rooms. I don't have those anymore.
Speaking of the dressing rooms, so we had these weird warren of dressing rooms. I would often, because I'm a woman, would have to go at like 5:30 in the morning. Paul actually had a big get ready on this.
I did too. Yeah, I did.
So
Yeah,
we were often there very early in the morning to
yes.
ready.
Yeah.
And we would have long periods of waiting. And I would kind of wander around the halls of Pinewood, like 8 a.m., just looking for some breakfast or something.
Exactly.
And then I was like, well, I'm going to take a nap. Like, I'm going to go back to sleep. So I'd be fully made up. I'd be like, all right, and I had a dressing room that had a couch, a desk, and then a side room with a bed in it. And I lay down, and the first day that I attempt to do this, I'm like laying there, and after a few minutes, I just get the sense, I was like really cold. I was very uncomfortable in the bed. I like got chills. Like I was.
Interesting. Okay.
And I thought, maybe the windows. I kept checking, like, is the window open? Like, why is it so cold over in this corner? And,
Weird. Okay.
So then the next time comes when I have time on my hands, I go to take a nap in this bed. And this time, it's like I start to sense, I can't see yet in my mind's eye, but I start to sense that there's just like something there that's like pushing me out of the bed. It does not want me in the bed. It's just a feeling that I have of like get out, like I'm on something. And so I'm like, okay, and so I get out of the bed. So this happens to me probably 3-4 times where I just can't fall asleep in this bed. Like I lay down, and it's very specific because I feel like I'm being pushed out of the bed, basically. And I'm like suspecting like something has claim over this corner of the room,
Yeah.
And I lay down. So now my brain is sort of, and I will say this like scientifically, now my brain is connecting a story to like this feeling that I'm.
Interesting.
So like I'm also someone who's like, this could all be made up in my brain. I'm if that's what the science tells me actually happened. But I also am like, it was very specific what happened to me.
Yeah.
I lay in the bed this final time, and I can see very clearly this very old woman in like a black gown with white hair, and she's laying in the bed, and she's like, she doesn't speak or anything, but energy is, I've been fucking trying to tell you, get
out of the bed, bitch.
Okay. And then I feel very, very much that I am actually laying in her arms. She wraps her arms around me and squeezes me.
Amazing.
So tight. And like not in a I'm killing you or any way like that.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Just in a way of like, I need you to know that I am here.
Okay.
I'm putting like pressure all around my body.
This is super interesting, Banks.
I'm here. Just fuck out of here. And I jumped out of the bed. I turned back. I was like, I could see the outline of her in a way.
Okay.
And I was like, again, just in my mind's eye, nothing's on the bed. I see a bed. It's fine, But now I'm out of the covers, and I'm like, okay, I hear you. Okay, I got it.
I'm out.
I see you. I hear you. I understand.
Amazing.
You don't want in this place. I am going to walk away from here. I'm not going to bother you. And I apologize. Like, I was like, let me give you all the
space you need
and love and whatever. I don't know what you're looking for, but the spirit was not trying to hurt me. But I just felt like she was there and she really wanted me to know.
You didn't say, give me a different dressing room. You didn't, which again, I might have done if I'd been in your...
That's weird. I'm not even kidding you. I was like, okay, cool. I'll just sleep up. Like, it was very...
Interesting.
Did you see her again from this other part of the room? Like,
I never saw her again.
That was it. You never saw her again.
I'm going to be dead serious. I never even put a costume on that bed.
Just leave it alone.
I didn't touch it. I didn't sit on it. I didn't put a hat on it. Nothing.
Yeah.
I stayed away from it the whole rest of the time. I napped on the couch easily, no problem.
Yeah, it's interesting. That's fun because, like, my sister lived in a house that was very weird and haunted and lots of weird shit. And I was always amazed at how nonplussed she was by it. She was just kind of like, yeah, you know, furniture moves. I walk in, the furniture's rearranged, the doors are, windows are, and she was so completely unimpressed by it. I mean, she had a similar to you. She had a similar kind of attitude about everything.
Yeah.
About death and things like that. So she was nonplussed by it. And I just was like, you fucking kidding me? This place is bananas, this house. Now, wait a minute, though. You saw her. Like, in other words, you were lying in the bed and you could see her next to you? You could see her?
When my eyes were closed, it was in my mind's eye. Do you know what I mean?
Okay, yes.
Physically, when my eyes were closed, I had a full, just a vision of what exactly was going on.
Okay.
I can give you a sketch of what the science would say, but it's not going to be helpful. That science says
I'm interested, though, Steve.
There's a part of your brain is called the default mode network. It's what they think happens when you're imagining, and it comes alive very strongly at night when you go to sleep. So when you dream, the prefrontal cortex sort of goes to sleep, but this default mode network is very active. When they look at somebody who's daydreaming or like mind wandering out the window, you know, then it's the same system. So the imagination system is basically the same when you're awake and imagining and when you're asleep and dreaming. And so the suggestion is that somehow one part of your brain is somehow fooling the other part of your brain, that you're generating this woman, but you can't realize that you're generating it. I don't think that's very helpful, but it's something.
Yeah.
It's still weird.
I am like, is this just neural pathways? Like, trying to make sense of something that feels very odd to me. Like, I have a sense of a feeling I'm having.
Right.
In a place I don't know. Like, do you know what I mean? So much going on. Like, and I am exhausted and I'm tired.
Yeah.
That movie was a nightmare to do.
Yeah, that's what I'm hearing. That's what I'm getting.
That's basic bottom line. I'm not surprised you were seeing shit like that on that movie. But that's super interesting. Maybe you're putting a narrative on this thing, but you had physical sensations of somebody squeezing you and stuff like that, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Here's my thing I'm going to ask you, Banks. Are you 100% sure you weren't falling asleep? Are you sure that you weren't falling asleep?
No, I definitely could have been. Yeah.
I don't know the science of all of this. Steve, you may know it better than me, but like that kind of napping thing, when you sort of take a weird nap and you sort of fall asleep in the middle of the day, frequently I have really bizarre dreams, especially in those kinds of napping things. Because I don't know what level of sleep you're getting to or whatever, but it's something fucked up.
That's the hypnagogic state.
And here's the thing, Banks. I have had almost a very similar experience of somebody getting in the bed with me, putting their arms around me and squeezing me in the same way. And both times it was saying I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. I was completely freaked out. And there was a sense up until before that too, that there was somebody in the room with me or something in the room with me and getting in the bed with me and doing all this shit. And one of them, I thought I heard them say something to me. I've told this story on here before where I heard one of them say to me, "Don't move." Like that to me. And it completely flipped the shit out of me. But it's interesting because I think both times I was having that, Steve, the hypnagogic thing.
Yeah.
And because there's a whole like fucking folklore that goes along with this in different cultures.
Something climbs on top of you and...
Right, the succubus and all that.
Yeah, incubus, succubus thing. Yeah, cool.
So you can't breathe, you can't move. And then it's also, there's a thing I think it's called the night hag or the old hag. And that a lot of the time you think it's a woman, you think it's an older woman that's
Yeah.
in the room with you, and this
Well,
shit
that
happens.
matches your experience.
And it
totally
does.
matches
As you're telling me that, and again, not to undercut the ghostly aspect of it. And also, to my mind, when I hear those explanations, I go, it's still fucking weird. Whatever the hell's
Yeah, it's
happening,
still
that's
creepy.
still really weird. Why is that happening?
And also, okay, like we're coming up with an explanation because we're
Yes.
human beings and we need an explanation. But I mean, the explanation's true or real or
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
and it is wild to me when we're, trying to explain things that are like hundreds of like that have come down to us
Yeah.
generations of storytelling, right? As if
Yeah.
like, so it's just a mythology we've all bought into.
Or something, or it's in us too. It's almost like a genetic thing. This stuff is in us to like put this stuff on. Like it's a cultural genetics or something like that. That we're all inheriting this shit.
We're having some shared experience, right?
Yeah, but that's really funny, Bex, because it has all the marks of that same kind of thing as you're telling me. And
Yeah.
I've had the same thing happen.
Remember that the comedian Mike Birbiglia tells this story about he sort of sleepwalks and
Yeah.
it like dangerously so. He went out a window, but all of us have this like weird switch that gets flipped where the brain thinks, I'm really getting chased by a monster, or I can fly, but your body is shut off. And I wonder if it's something about the mechanism, and you just feel like I can't move because the mechanism is not quite locked in yet, or
It's literally like a switch is stuck or
Yeah.
something, and you're stuck. And so I remember those experiences of being like, I got to move. If I can just move,
Yeah.
it'll go away. And you too. You got out of the bed and it stopped. And it's like if I can just roll over, it'll stop. And it did. Every time I moved, it ended.
For me personally, and why I'm like, I don't know, I'll tell the story because I don't know.
Yeah.
It's never happened to me anywhere else or any other
Ever
time.
again. Right.
Right?
Right.
Like it was very specific to that one spot. And it's not
Yeah.
like I say, like I've been a lot of places. I've slept in a lot of beds. Like I travel a lot for work.
Yep.
And it's only happened to me this one time. So it's not like my brain is playing a trick on me.
right.
You know what I mean?
It's a one-off.
Right.
That's what I find really interesting.
That
and then
is interesting. That is
in the
interesting.
exact same room, peacefully on the couch, right there.
Right.
Yeah.
That is
No,
interesting.
I get it when someone's like, my whole house is and I gotta.
Right. Right.
I mean, I have a friend Carrie who was like moved into a house, like paid millions of dollars for like a beautiful home, and like right away was like, oh, it's haunted. Like stuff was same as your sister, like. Doors were getting left open, a gate was latched, like this and the thing. And she was like, kind of like me, like, I don't know, it's going to be fine. Like, what are we going to do? We can't, we're not moving. And kind of was like accepting stuff. And then came home and the pilot, the stove was on. Like somebody hit the stove.
Right.
And she was like, that's dangerous.
That's
right?
malevolent. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, oh, I gotta have, and she did like full like sages, seances. Like, whole thing.
Did it
Like,
work?
I don't know if any of that.
Tibetan shaman coming in and
Like she was like, that's a step too far. I don't like that. But again, brand new house. She doesn't know how any of it works. And she's learning it too. So who the hell knows?
yeah.
But she felt compelled to try something because she was like, dogs would bark randomly. But who the fuck? My dogs bark at things. My dog can hear a truck backing up 20 minutes
Did
before.
she have cats though? Because cats could have turned on the stove because they're bastards.
She did that. I don't know, actually. But like, I do think all of this is valid. And why I started this with, I'm just learning,
Yeah.
is exactly that. I'm like, I don't know what happened to me, but it was real for me in that moment.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I accept that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whatever the explanation is, I would accept, but I don't think I'm ever going to know.
No, I agree with you. I'm in the same sort of, and I've had experiences that I'm like, I can sort of explain. I can kind of go, well, any number of factors were at play. I was really tired. If it's just it's just a matter of neural pathways and brain chemistry, it's still really fucking weird.
Yeah. And it could still be meaningful.
I mean, we know scientifically there's energy constantly everywhere. Everything has energy inside of it. Our molecules are bouncing around on each other, right? Like everything is moving.
Yeah.
We just can't perceive it. Again, taking it way back to the Native Americans who think there's spirits in the trees and in all of the nature and like sunlight and all this stuff. I'm just like, I don't know. We're all evolving still, and we're all trying to figure out like what is supernatural versus natural, and what is the line between what makes it supernatural and just natural?
Yeah, the mind could have like faculties that we don't have access to, or sometimes you get a little. But the thing that bothers me about your story is that no, it's just like I feel bad for the old lady because that's it. She's just hanging out in a bed. Like, get up and get around. Like, is that the spirit future for us? We're just stuck where we died or whatever it is. It's horrible.
Maybe she's processing through some trauma and energy is just sitting there. Maybe she's not there. Just some energy is left there from her trauma.
No, that's true.
Bed, I don't know.
That's true.
So you buy things like astrology and stuff like that? Psychics?
I haven't taken any time to investigate, or I don't study my chart. But I'm interested. Look, I'm an actor. So like, I'm interested in a lot of like human nature, why people do things and what all of that is. And like, if I were playing a character who was really into it, I would totally study it and learn about it.
Yeah.
I've never taken time to study it or learn about it. And so I can't say with any authority whether any of that is right, bullshit, not. I don't know.
Well, God bless you, Banks, and hopefully, I'll see you again soon or whatever. You can come back or we'll see each other on the silver screen. Thanks, Elizabeth. That was awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
Big stuff. A lot of chin wagging there, Steve.
A lot of chin wagging, a lot of different directions. And she is very, she's got like a hard-boiled approach to life.
Talk about stoic, though. Talk about a person that seems to have a stoic philosophy. Yeah, which is great. I mean, she's definitely like, she takes but thoughtful, compassionate person.
Very.
With the stoic, which I suppose is a part of stoicism, too.
She's seen some shit, basically.
Yep, she's seen some shit, and she knows some shit, and she's super cool, super smart, and I've enjoyed acting with her in the past and would look forward to more of it. Thank you all for joining us. And just in a few short days, I think we might have a bonus wag for you. So keep your eyes peeled for that. Keep your eyes peeled was always a phrase that disturbed me as a child when people would say,
it is disturbing.
Yeah, I was like, that's disturbing to me. I don't want to keep my eyes peeled. You know what else? What confused me as a child was watch your head. And I'd be like, but I
can I watch my head?
Yeah, I would literally, as a kid, people go, watch your head. And I was always like, wait a minute. And like, not even being a smart ass, I wouldn't even say it. I would just think in myself, I'd go, but I can't watch my own head.
I never understood have your cake and eat it too. I was like, I don't understand that. Like, I was like, if you have your cake, you could certainly eat it. I don't understand. I was like, you just do one thing and then another.
No, you're right. I guess it's true, isn't it? If it's my cake, I'm going to eat the fucking thing. Was somebody going to keep me from eating my cake?
Yeah, I think the logic of it is you have it in front of you and you've eaten it, which is a contradiction. Whereas I was like, oh, once I've got it, I could eat it.
Well, friends, this and more exciting palaver is yours for the asking on the Chinwag. Please join us next time. And until then,
wag on weirdos. Chinwag is a production of Treefort Media and Touchy Feely Films, hosted and executive produced by Paul Giamatti and Stephen Asma. Executive producers for Treefort are Kelly Garner and Lisa Ammerman. Dan Carey is executive producer for Touchy Feely. Our series producer is Rachel Whitley Bernstein. Original theme music by Luke Topp, with additional music by Via Mardot. Oscar Guido is our executive in charge of production. Tom Monahan is head of audio for Treefort. Audio production supervision by Matt Dyson. Editing and mixing by Jeff Neal. Animation created by Alex Sokol. Research assistance by Aidan Brooks. Lastly, for more information, go to chinwagpod.fm and find us on Instagram or TikTok at chinwagpod or on Twitter at chinwag_pod.